to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 136 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 62 of A Clash of Kings, that's Sansa 7.
Did I shout my name there? Felt like I shouted, I'm Mackelly.
You always do.
I do. As always, we're going to chat about the chapter. We're going to try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes that'll provide some additional information about the characters and other items of note in this chapter. How are you, sir?
I am doing just fine. Before we get started, can I just break some news to you and our listeners? Molly got her logs test back. You might recall from last week, Simon had spent hours with Molly practicing mathematical logs, which I don't even know what that is, but luckily you do. And apparently she does too, because she got an A on the test. So nice. Congratulations, you two. You make quite the team.
That is very good news. I'm glad. I never had any doubt she had it. She just had it all down. She just needed a little bit of practice. It was easy peasy.
Yep.
Whew, so that's good. Right. That is a fillip, because I'm in a bit of a bad mood. You know, I know that some of our listeners don't care about sports. I won't spend too much time, but I love Oldham Athletic a lot.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Cheer for them, and they are going through a season which is, I mean, we are circling the drain. I mean, we are in real trouble of falling into utter oblivion. And we've lost 6 games in a row.
Oof.
To compound how bad the season is going. And in those 6 games, in 4 of the 6 games, we have conceded a goal in the 94th minute or later. Out of 90. So you're not supposed to be playing at the 94-minute mark.
Game should be over by then.
Right. And 3 of the 6, it was the winning goal. 3 of the 6. So basically, you watch Oldham games, and as the time elapses, you get more and more concerned.
Right.
And then the other team scores right at the death and breaks your heart and smashes it under their foot like the Hound would. While you watch.
Oh. Yes.
It has reached proportions. I can't describe how hard it is now to watch. I mean, and it's just heartbreaking because you can see it coming and we lose every game.
You know it's coming.
Oh,
that's rough. I feel for you.
Thank you. I mean, the thing is, it can't happen to you because, the Steelers, what's the worst case scenario for the Steelers? An 0-16 season and you get the first round draft pick next time, You get to get better.
Yes, that's a good point. That's not the case in Premier or in English soccer in general.
Yeah. You can keep falling and never come back.
Yeah, when your team slid out of the division that they were in for so long, I thought for sure they were going to bounce right back and be right back up in it.
Mackelly, you've got to be careful listening and believing to all the things I say.
Oh.
We're abysmal.
You'd think I would have learned that over all the years. You remember last week you were talking about how you had a flat tire and you were...
I did have a flat tire, and it was hard to get the...
Yes. Wouldn't you know? But Ethan had a flat tire just yesterday. And he changed it. So we have AAA, which I don't know if everyone knows what AAA is, but it's a service when your car breaks down, you could call them. And so, he doesn't live at home. He lives in an apartment just off of campus of the college he goes to. And he called me and said, I have a flat tire. And I said, well, just call AAA. They'll come fix it for you. And he was just mentioned to his friends, I'm going to call AAA for them to come fix my tire. And they started getting on him about being a wimp. Oh, call AAA. Go change your own tire. So he watched 2 YouTube videos, read the pertinent information out of the instruction manual, and went down and changed his own tire. So I was quite proud. He was quite proud of himself. I'll tell you that much.
I imagine he would be. That's a rite of passage right there.
Yeah. But
I still haven't managed it. Remember, I had to get my son to help me, and we could not get this thing off. So.
Well, I'm imagining some truck driving around with a box of screws and nails on the back of the bed, and they're just flying off everywhere.
They must be. I mean, they must work for the tire people.
I guess. Anyway, I just thought it was quite a coincidence that you just had a flat tire and now Ethan just had a flat tire. Oh, and we went to go get that tire patched, and they managed to sell me on a whole new set of tires. So we went out of there.
That's always
what could have been like a $20-some patch turned into like a $600 investment in tires on his elderly vehicle. So
that's the big fear, of course.
Yep.
Let's get down to business.
Yeah, I think we should get down to business. We got a lot to talk about with Sansa and the Hound.
How did we leave Sansa Stark? Last time we saw Sansa, which was only 2 chapters ago, she keeps coming thick and fast. She was hunkering down with the other highborn ladies in Maegor's Holdfast. She was getting an education from an increasingly drunk Queen Cersei on ruling a kingdom and about the different treatment of men and women in their society. Finally, she learned that if the Lannisters should lose, she too will lose her head. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. Sir Lancel Lannister delivers the news to Queen Cersei and Sansa. The battle is lost. In large part due to Cersei's insistence that Joffrey be brought back into the castle when the Mudgate was under attack. That move sparked a mass exodus of Goldcloaks from their duties, the men throwing down their weapons and fleeing after seeing the king run away to hide. Not only is the Mudgate under attack still, but the King's Gate is once again being rammed, and there are mobs fighting to get out of the city at several other gates.
Lancel also informs them that Tyrion is likely dead, news that elicits little reaction from the Queen. Osney Kettleblack adds that there's now fighting on both sides of the river, many thinking that Stannis' men might be fighting each other. Cersei's only concern is for her son. King Joffrey is commanding the crossbowmen at the Red Keep's gatehouse. Cersei insists he be brought inside Maegor's Holdfast for safekeeping.
Lancel won't hear of it. The move's pointless. If the castle falls, Joff is dead regardless. Pulling him from the gatehouse will only cause more Goldcloaks to lose faith. He begs the queen to let Joff stay where he is. Lancel himself will watch over him. Cersei isn't swayed. She wants the king brought in now. She slams her hand into Lancel's wound and storms out of the ballroom.
The move sets off a panic in the ballroom. Some begin to wail while others demand answers. Sansa does her best to reassure them that all is fine. She tends to Lancel, whose nasty wound has been reopened by the Queen's wrath and right hook, and sends him for medical help. Ser Dontos approaches and suggests Sansa go back to her bedchamber. She'll be safer there. He'll come and get her when things have calmed down.
Through the window of her bedchamber, she can see the green and orange lights in the night sky. She will sleep. When she wakes, her fate will be what it will be. However, she's not alone in her room. Strong hands grab her wrist and mouth. The Hound is drunk and has been waiting for her. He says he's lost everything and he's leaving. Somewhere north. He tells her he could protect her so that nobody would ever hurt her again.
When she can't hold his gaze, he says he's come for the song she promised him, Florian and Jonquil. Throwing her on the bed and putting his dagger to her throat, he tells her to sing for her little life. All songs fled from her mind in her panic, but one returns. It's not the one he requested, but she sings it anyway. When she's done, she cups his face in her hand. She feels the sticky blood, but also a different wetness.
With that, Sandor rips off his white cloak and leaves. Sansa huddles under his cloak and sleeps. She's woken by bells. All throughout the city bells ring. Not a sad tune like when King Robert died, but a happy one. Ser Dontos arrives with the good news. The battle is over. Stannis has been defeated. Dead or fled, he doesn't know or care. The Tyrells and Lannister forces combine to put an end to Stannis' threat.
Tywin led the forces on the northern bank. Mace Tyrell and Randall Tarley led those on the south bank. But guess who led the vanguard, he asks. Sansa takes a flyer on her brother Robb, but the answer is even less likely. Renly. Lord Renly himself, in his signature green armour with golden antlers, led the van. So, that doesn't seem right, because Renly's dead. Yeah, I mean, I'm not forgetting this, right? Renly's definitely dead.
That's what Cat saw. Cat saw him die. Okay. So,
okay, good.
Yes, I would say
You know me with my memory. It could just be like, maybe I just forgot, you know.
Yeah, no. If your memory's wrong, so is mine, because pretty sure we saw him die. But you never know, I guess. Hey, if Beric Dondarrion can keep being thought dead and then coming back to life,
that's true.
Who knows? Why
That's
not
true.
Renly?
To be fair, we have not yet had an eyewitness to one of Beric Dondarrion's many deaths. So.
That is a difference. That is, yes. Yeah, it does seem... her guess of Robb made me smile.
Yes. Of all the people who would not be there to fight
Right.
Stannis, Robb would be top of that list.
Only slightly less likely than Renly.
But... yes, true. But I will say that Ser Dontos' reaction led her to the false conclusion because he was happy and excited.
Right.
What possibly happy and exciting can there be about Tywin Lannister arriving?
That's a good point.
Lancel announces that Cersei's brother has been killed and Mandon Moore of the King's Guard is missing. So he's aware of this.
Right. He's aware that that they were on the ship bridge, because he says likely they were on the ship bridge when it broke up. So I was just wondering if should we consider adding Lancel as a candidate for the force behind the attempt on Tyrion's life by Sir Mandon Moore.
What's funny is that I never thought of it until you said that, he announced this. Therefore, he knows it. Therefore, he's aware of it. And then I was like, wait a minute. He hated Tyrion too. And
exactly.
He had it in for Tyrion.
Yeah.
And would have had access to Mandon Moore.
Right.
But weirdly, now, if you asked him now, would he like to murder Tyrion? He'd be like, well, no, actually. I think it's Cersei I would like to murder.
It's the other sibling that needs to go.
Right.
Right. I mean, he was being blackmailed by Tyrion. And this would be a good opportunity to get out of that blackmail. So, and then it got me thinking about Littlefinger and Varys and Pycelle, some of the other lesser likely names that we threw out last week about who possibly was the force behind Sir Mandon's attempt. And I was thinking maybe one of them has dirt on Mandon. We had talked about how financial bribes with, golden dragons or however else you might tempt someone financially wouldn't work because he's a member of the Kingsguard. But what if they know that he's doing something disgraceful, like, having relations with someone, which is supposed to be off limits as a member of the Kingsguard? So... yeah.
My issue with that is that I can't imagine Mandon Moore caring. I mean, if he is, let's say it's that, he's got a lover somewhere, he can't be the first Kingsguard to have that. He can't be that disgraceful. And he doesn't care. I mean, Mandon Moore is the one person here who comes across as just not caring what people think of him, And
that is true.
The thought of public disgrace, I just don't see how you leverage that. The easier way to get Mandon Moore to kill Tyrion Lannister is to ask him.
Simply ask him to do it.
Yes. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Little fella, yeah? Got it, yeah. Cool. If you don't mind, I'll do it during this battle, not just right now. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Whenever's good for you.
I'll literally kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think you need to strong-arm Mandon Moore to do this. I just think he's the kind of person who would be like, is that an order? Okay.
A dead-eyed killer.
Consider it done. Yeah. So, Cersei pulls another Cersei when she calls for Maegor's holdfast to be isolated from the rest of the Red Keep, because she's just given permission to several of the highborn women to leave Maegor's holdfast to go pray in the Sept.
Yep.
So basically, she's just signing their death warrant. I mean, assuming her reading of the situation is correct, which, her reading of the situation is the castle is falling, the city has fallen, the castle will fall, only Maegor's holdfast will survive here.
Right. And she's abandoning them to their fate. If you remember, it was my pedantry from last week. Why would these women leave Maegor's holdfast when they're here to ride out the war? Or the battle.
The one thing I'll say, you were right about that, to be pedantic about that, but Cersei could send a runner to say, all right, everyone back inside.
You've got 15 minutes.
Right.
Yes.
Before just barring the door. Look, first of all, I want to bar the door, then I want to send a runner. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe they just didn't know Cersei well enough to foresee this result, which we, of course, knowing Cersei as we do, would have seen this one coming.
Yeah. But I mean, again, let's give Cersei some credit. She clearly loves her children, and her care for Joffrey, unfortunately now for her, is actively hampering the defense of the city. Lancel is making some... Lancel, who, by the way, goes up in my estimation during this chapter, is making some very good point. Joffrey's dead if they lose this fight. If they lose the fight, Joffrey's dead. And every time he takes a backward step, more gold cloaks and civilian fighters drop their weapons and change sides. You know?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What he said was true and seems rather obvious. If you pull him off of the Red Keep gate back into Maegor's Holdfast, then that's where the next line is going to be, at Maegor's Holdfast drawbridge. So, but I find it a little bit ironic that Cersei, who last chapter spent all that time talking about how much better she is than the other frightened hens in the room, is acting a bit like a frightened hen when it comes to Joff, not able to be brave and understand that, yes, I need to let my son be in a somewhat little bit dangerous situation here, and I can't let fear get the better of me.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Yeah. I mean, it's much easier to disparage other people's love for their children than one's own.
True.
But I will say, in her defense here, there is a sort of... Before the battle started, Tyrion said it would be good for the morale of the troops to see him leading the battle. If I was Cersei, I'd be like, I'm calling BS on that. He needs to be safe here with me. But now, because of the way the battle is unfolding, I would say that Lancel is being genuinely honest. This is causing a distinct problem. Every time he disappears from where he's fighting, it causes a problem. And so they need to... And so the problem is for Cersei is that she's not seeing it firsthand. She's getting these secondhand reports from people, all of whom she sees as being in that same boat of, oh, the king needs to lead the battle. But she's like, it's just not true.
Right.
You could fight this battle without him. It's just she happens to be wrong in this case because of the way... What they need to do is dress a few people up like him and have them out there, sort of...
Well, or come up with a diversion. Say, Kay, Your Grace, there is trouble at this other gate.
Right.
You must...
Right.
We need you. And
yes. I'll fight there. You stay here and fight, guys. Yeah.
Uh-huh. and then sneak him off to Maegor's Holdfast.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
But I thought it was a little bit of a surprising outburst from Lancel, because to this point he's been both Cersei and Tyrion's pawn or lackey or whatever. Now of course his life is on the line here. If they get into Maegor's Holdfast, he's going to die along with the other Lannisters. But we've just seen him do some things without even thinking about it, like setting the king on the path of death by the Queen's order, and being Cersei's bed warmer while Jaime's gone, and spying for Tyrion, and none of those situations did he stop to think critically about what was asked of him and how he was being used. But now he's finally got up the gumption to call out Cersei, and unfortunately she literally knocks him back down quite easily.
Yes, I will say, I think this goes to the fact that he is sporting an almost life-threatening wound.
Right.
If you get stabbed in the side by someone, it perhaps makes all of the sort of political calculations and machinations you're involved in seem less important, and sort of maybe it's more...
Yes,
we better win this battle.
Yeah.
It sort of reminds me of the whole Mike Tyson thing. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
I love that quote. The thing about this whole argument about, wherever Joffrey is pulled from, things collapse around him, reminded me a little bit of the power riddle from Varys that he gave to Tyrion about which person really holds the power, the king, the rich person, or the septon, or whoever it was. And, ultimately the answer is the power is where the people decide the power is. And if they decide Joffrey doesn't have the power anymore, and they're throwing down their weapons and no longer listening to his commands, well, he really doesn't have any power anymore.
Wasn't there a fourth character in the riddle? It was a knight or a soldier of some sort was the fourth character in the riddle, wasn't it?
Might have been,
and each of them commanded him to pick up the sword.
Yes, that's what it was. Yes, right.
Yeah. So that's kind of where the power is in the people's hands. It's where they choose to allot it. I mean, the one actually swinging the sword is the people.
Right.
But the other three are the ones giving the commands.
Yes, that's the personification of the people there.
Yeah. Had the battle not ended the way it did, it does seem that Cersei's actions would have cost them the throne here.
Yeah. And so,
or
at least
had them retreat to Magos. I mean, to Magos Holdfast, which they may have been able to hold out until the Tyrells and Tywin arrived, I guess.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. That was her plan. Cersei's plan last Sansa chapter was to, if everything else falls, to try and hold out until she can either, as she thought she was going to turn herself over to Stannis, or have herself beheaded. She was very vague about which of those she was going to do. The
key flaw in that plan for me is thinking about it. Let's assume the Tyrells and Tywin are 2 days away. So the city falls, and then Stannis has got 2 days to convince the citizens of King's Landing, A, of the legitimacy of his claim, and B, of how good of a king he would make.
Right.
Then when Tywin and the Tyrells arrive, they might be met by overwhelming force against them, sort of all the gold cloaks and all of Stannis' forces in a defensive position,
Yeah, if they could get into the city and close the gates behind them, they might be in a better position. But did not work out that way, I guess.
No. So they see fighting on both sides of the river, as Tyrion did last time. Osney Kettleblack thinks it might be Stannis' lords fighting each other, which, there's a lot of strife in Stannis' camp. We know that for a fact.
Right.
there
Mixed groups there.
Some who were Renly loyalists, some who were always Stannis loyalists.
Yeah, it's certainly an option we didn't consider last chapter when we were considering who might be fighting on the south bank of the Blackwater Rush.
That's true. And given that Peter Baelish is somewhere out in the wind, then that,
yes,
stirring up trouble like that is his forte.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
We should have thought about that. So Cersei storms out, sort of leaving a lot of confusion in her wake. The women are like, "Why? Where's she going? Are we losing the battle?" And Sansa kind of takes the lead. She sort of calms everyone down and tells them not to worry and that the battle's going as well as it could be, sort of thing. And she basically gets them back down on an even keel, which is good. I mean, she's only 12-year-old girl, right? I mean, she's rising to the occasion here.
Yeah, I felt like she showed more regal leadership here in that scene than Cersei has basically since our story started. She was pretty much the anti-Cersei. She was soothing the worried and tending to the sick, even if it was an enemy, Lancel, all the while worrying about her own life, but not letting that show. She was putting out a positive, upbeat, strong face for the people around her.
Yes, she certainly was the anti-Cersei when it came to tending the sick, because she was tending Lancel, whereas Cersei was slapping him in the wound.
Yes.
So
that was definitely anti-Cersei there.
Yeah.
But so after she does all this, she thinks to herself that she's soft and weak and stupid, and because she was helping Lancel when, he's an enemy, she should be letting him die. But really, what she's doing is she thinks that she's soft, weak, and stupid, just like Joffrey and Cersei say I am. But what she's doing here is comparing herself to the twisted ideal that Cersei and Joff have about what being a royal leader is.
Yeah, very true. I mean, yeah, she is nothing like that, but that is not what real leadership is.
Right, exactly.
If she wants a role model for that, she could think of her own father.
Right.
He would be telling everyone to stay calm, that things are going to work out.
Yes, exactly.
Well, actually, he'd be fighting at the vanguard.
He probably would. But if he were stuck in this ballroom for whatever reason,
right. Yeah.
Yes, she would be doing what a true leader does. Lying. Keeping everyone calm and staying positive.
Lying appropriately,
yes.
Not gratuitously. Yes. So, knowing how the battle was going to end, because I did know, I knew how the battle was going to end.
Good job.
I was really rooting for Sansa to go with the Hound. I because she had an opportunity here to flee King's Landing. And I think mostly she didn't go because she could not face running away with the Hound.
Right. Yes.
But there was also the bit of her thinking, Stannis is going to win this battle and I have a very good chance of getting my freedom.
True. Yeah.
Because at the time she was talking to the Hound, all the news from the battle was, it's going to be Stannis. She
was also concerned that Ser Ilyn was going to off her head. So, there was that other force there as well.
That's true, but that might have driven her to go with the Hound.
Right.
But
yeah.
But this goes to, I'm going to bring this up in pedantry, but Ser Ilyn isn't exactly tracking her. She walked back from the ballroom to her room. She could hide anywhere in the Red Keep.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I mean, she's young. She's a child. Maybe she's just more fearful of the idea that he is going to find her wherever she is, because she thinks to herself early in the chapter, she can't see Ser Ilyn, but she can feel him. She knows he's close. That could just be paranoia setting in there, I guess. But So when she gets back to her chambers, this is when Ser Dontos says, "Go back to chambers. Wait for me. Wait there where it's safe. I'll come get you when everything's all over." She gets back to her room and she's looking out the window, and that's when she kind of backs in almost to the Hound, and he says, "Little bird, I knew you'd come." And I was like, well, it is her room. So it doesn't take the power of her lore to see that in the flames, that she was going to come to her own bedchamber at some point.
I sent a shadow demon. They said, wait here.
Right. But so that he says to her, don't you want to know how the war is going, or who's winning the war? And she says, who? And he says, I don't know. I only know what I've lost. And Sansa says, what's that? And the Hound says, all. I've lost it all. And, I took that to mean that he's lost the respect of the men because he was too afraid to go back out into the fray. And so he no longer thinks of himself as the strong, tough man that he thought he was. And it's either that, or maybe the fire made him realize that he's done with fighting and no longer wants to be part of any of it. But I thought him losing all meant he lost face. He's no longer who he thought he was.
Yeah, but I think you're giving him too much self-reflection there. I think it's not that he changed who he thought he was. I think he always knew that deep down he was very afraid of fire and did not want to be involved with anything that could get him burned. And I think the problem is not so much that he's lost face, it's that he can't terrorize people anymore. Because the people he needs to terrorize need to be terrified of him, and people who saw him will no longer be terrified of him.
Huh? Yeah. It's some way along the same line of what I'm getting at.
Yes, but I think you're sort of like hanging it on sort of self-reflection about,
True.
I'm not the man I thought I was.
Right.
The problem is he's not the man that everybody else thought.
Yes.
That's right. What's different for him now.
Yes, that's true. Speaking of, you were just talking a minute ago about whether Sansa should have left with the Hound or not. I was going back and forth about that same idea. And because you're right, at this point in the story, she thinks the war is lost and she expects to be killed by Ser Ilyn Payne. So
right.
the question is, would she be safer with the Hound or taking her chances with evading Ser Ilyn Payne? Now, he does put a blade to her throat again in this chapter, which makes 2 times that he's done that.
He does that.
But on the other side, he's also very protective of her.
Right.
But here's what it boiled down to for me. I can't say with certainty one way or the other whether he would force himself upon her. I don't personally think that he would, but I can't say for certain that that's not a danger.
You see, you're absolutely right. That is one thing that definitely sort of hangs over this, because he is feelings towards her are strong. They are definitely partly paternal, but they're definitely partly not paternal.
Right. Yeah.
And he's obviously a monstrous human being. Is he monstrous enough to act on that second part of that? Yeah, definitely possible. And so maybe the answer to the question is no. But if you want to get north, and you want to get north in a quiet and smaller group as possible, there is nobody better on the planet than the Hound to do that.
Yeah.
Because people won't mess with him, and he could protect you all the way north. And so that's the difficult sort of balance for her, is that he really could get me through all of this. This 2 months of travel would be hard, but there's nobody else. I would not hit the road with Ser Dontos at this point.
No, definitely not. Him and his
safe
flabby
in your
arms.
Sleep. You would be safe in your sleep, but that's the only time you'd be safe.
Yeah, and speaking of, if you want to get back north, that's what the Hound says. She says, where are you going to go? And he says, I'll go north, somewhere, anywhere. And then he says, I could keep you safe so that no one will hurt you ever again. And the more the conversation between the two of them goes on, the more it starts to feel like he's doing the most terrible job in the world of trying to propose to her that she leave with him and he will keep her safe until he can reunite her with her brother or her mom, and that he possibly even take up arms for Robb or maybe be Sansa's personal protector. I think that's possibly what he's trying to convey. Just he doesn't know how to say these things.
In almost any other context, the words "I could keep you safe, no one would hurt you again" is literally a proposal of marriage.
Right.
But because of who it is, it's like you're hearing it through all of the noise of his being the Hound.
Right.
And it's like, well, what is he offering exactly? So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's definitely an attempt at a profession of some kind of love here.
Right.
But
yes. But he just
it's
doesn't know how to convey.
Because it doesn't. Yeah. It does not come across, it doesn't come across.
But
you can pick it apart, but a 12-year-old girl couldn't pick it apart.
Especially a terrified 12-year-old girl who has a knife to her throat.
Right,
So...
and a 280-pound guy in her room wielding said knife.
Yes, who is also quite drunk.
Covered in blood.
Covered in blood, right. Yeah. Yeah, but you notice he never says, come with me. He only says, I'm going north and I could keep you safe so that no one would ever hurt you again. There's an implication there, come with me, but I think he would be putting himself in too vulnerable of a position to ask, will you come with me?
Yeah. As usual, she can't hold his gaze, and so he throws her on the bed and puts the dagger to his throat, as we said. She then sings him a song, which we've been challenged to sing. But
we have.
I'm imagining we're going to duck that particular challenge.
Are we? I brought my book in case you wanted to go through with it. We've been offered cups of arbor gold if we do it.
but she then, after she finishes singing, she sweetly cups his face, presumably her little hand on his giant face.
Right.
And she feels sort of blood and the tears on his face for having been sung to by her.
Right.
Yeah, she definitely can soothe the beast with song.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I felt like it was the same instinct that kicked in earlier in the ballroom. This ability to calm, and she soothed him with song like Beauty and the Beast. Because if the opposite had happened, if she had struggled and fought and screamed out, which you certainly couldn't blame her for, it might have sent him over the edge and he might have ended up, doing something that would be harmful to her.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yeah. But, yeah, she seems to have an intuition for how to handle this kind of person, which is weird because she always gives sass to Joffrey Baratheon, first of his name. She should perhaps try singing to him too.
Maybe.
So the Hound is rebuffed, or at least hears a rebuff. I mean, she just doesn't agree to go with him. So he rips off his white cloak and leaves it on the floor, and that's obviously the final sundering of him from the Lannisters and from Joffrey. Interestingly, she picks up the white cloak and wraps herself in it, and it must be pretty stinky, you'd imagine, with the fire and the blood and everything and the sweat.
Right.
But she feels some comfort in thoughts of the Hound too.
Yes, it certainly. I got out of it that she has complicated feelings about the Hound, as he has complicated feelings. Maybe not romantic feelings like he has. We think he has for her, but sometimes he's the best protection that she's had since she's been since her father died, basically. And we've seen glimpses of a softer, more caring side. He rode into that riot to save her. He hesitated when Joff the king commanded him to hit her, and he said enough when she was being beaten by Ser Boris in front of everyone that time. But then on the flip side, he's threatened to kill her, by my estimation, I think 3 times, including the one in this chapter when he says, "Scream and I'll kill you." You can believe that. He's now put a blade to her throat twice. He's come into her room and acted in a violent manner, but she curls up under his cloak, once again seeking protection from him from things that will do her harm. So, complicated. Yep. But I wondered if the leaving of the white cloak was either a token of his feelings about her. Was there a symbolism there? The white cloak supposedly meaning purity and honor, or was he just discarding it and there was no symbol?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could read that into it. I just assumed he was dispatching with his pretensions of being a Kingsguard, I think.
Yeah, except for that she said to him, "You're never going to get out of the city." And he said, "I've got this white cloak." But then he left the white cloak, so...
He did say, "And I'll kill anyone who gets in my way."
Unless they're on fire.
Unless they're on fire, yes.
Yeah.
So then she takes a nap, and then Ser Dontos wakes her with the news of the battle. So most of the rest of the chapter is the news of the battle. But let's just interject here with what an idiot Ser Dontos is, because he comes in there dancing and cheering to the point where she thinks that her brother might have arrived.
Right.
Because Tywin Lannister has arrived to save Joffrey. It's like, dude, that isn't good news.
No.
That is not the good news.
In what way should we be excited about that?
Right. Stannis Baratheon has taken the throne and killed Ser Ilyn Payne, and he said he's going to send you north. That's
yes. Dance around with your flabby arms for that, for sure.
Their enemies are the Lannisters, and he's cheering their victories.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I wonder if he was actually ever in any danger, regardless of who wins. I mean, he's now a fool. People are not known to come into power and then have all the fools killed. You can have more than one fool.
Yeah, but Patchface is a vengeful little monster.
He is. He might not want to share the limelight. I was actually thinking when Ser Dontos said, "Go to your chamber, I'll come get you when it's safe," and then follows through and comes and gets her, that feels rather dangerous in its own right. Like, how do you what's your cover story for why the Fool is coming to Sansa to tell her the good news? They're not supposed to have any, connection with one another. So,
yes. Yes, well done. That's a good point. They are very poor at keeping their relationship secret.
Terrible at it. Just terrible.
Yeah. But, however, I will say that Ser Dontos does keep up the front of being an absolute idiot all the time.
He does.
So,
yeah,
that would disarm the spies, I feel.
Yes, Cersei and Joff might think they have befriended one another. I can't imagine they think that he's going to hatch a master plan to break her out of here and get her back home.
So, Tyrion was right. There was fighting on both sides of the river. The Marbrans and the Rowans, who we talked about several times being seen north of the Mander.
Right.
Well, now we know why. They were making peace with Tywin's army and making a plan for relieving King's Landing.
Yeah, and he follows that up by saying that Stannis was neck deep in the river when they attacked him. And I'm wondering if they were intentionally waiting for Stannis' force to be split across the river before, launching their attack. You'd think that might make life easier to defeat him if your forces are split like that. And we were actually concerned previously about the fact that Stannis has kind of cornered himself a bit by putting all his forces up against this river, that he would be vulnerable from attack from the south. And, of course, the Lannisters have poor Edmure's success in the Battle of the Fords to thank for Tywin's help here, because
yes.
Tywin was trying to get back to the west until Edmure continued to throw him back from crossing the Red Fork until Tywin changed course and headed southeast. So had he managed to get across, he would probably be in the west and nowhere near around to help.
True. Very true. Do you think... I always thought that when we... I mean, again, it really helps to be rereading this, even with my patchy memory. Because as I read the Battle of the Fords, I was thinking to myself, I know where Tywin's headed. I know where Tywin is really headed. Now, the question as I read it was, is he already heading there and this is all just a front, just a show? Or is he genuinely trying to get back to Castle Rock and he's only going to change his plans if he can't? Because as I read it this time, I thought to myself, because do you remember that Brienne said that we felt his fingers, now we'll feel his fist?
Right.
But the fist never seemed to really come. There were some big battles, but they weren't that big. It felt like if Tywin really wanted to, he could have got across those fords if he sent all of his forces at them.
Yeah, that's
a
possibility.
If they were just trying to keep up the pretense that that's where they were headed, all the while they were headed to King's Landing, because King's Landing was the vulnerable point for them. They'd already lost the big cities of the West,
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
Or some of them. They haven't lost the big cities of the West, right? Lannisport, Castle
right.
Rock is still there.
But Robb is wreaking havoc in the West, Yeah, that's a solid point. I mean, with the information that we have at this point in the story, that is certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
But so Dontos gives Sansa a bit of a breakdown on how the battle went. So Tywin Lannister led the force on the north shore of the river, and Randall Tarley and Mace Tyrell led the forces on the south side of the river. And then he says, and guess who led the vanguard? And she says, Robb? So, it's be nice to wish. Yeah. You could always wish that it had been Robb.
Yes, that would have been nice, but no.
No.
He may eventually fight Stannis Baratheon, but he has to get rid of the Lannisters first.
Right. Yeah, it was even a more unlikely source, and that was Renly. I think, as far as unlikeliness would go Ned, Renly, Robb.
Yeah.
2 of the 3 we're pretty sure are dead, and Robb seems very unlikely.
I'm trying to think of anyone. Varys?
Yes.
No, it's a good point.
But so yeah.
Can it be true?
Right. Can it be? I mean, we saw him die through Kat's POV, but nobody could produce a body, and that's what Sir Courtney Penrose's holdup was with Storm's End, is he wanted to see Renly's body, and nobody could produce it. So I guess that leaves a little bit of a window open.
Yeah.
But let's say that it is true. And Renly didn't die or was brought back to life.
Didn't he die bleeding in Brienne's arms, though? I mean, he was.
Yes.
It wasn't like his spirit left him to have a fight with Stannis' spirit. It was like he was gushing blood.
He was gushing blood. Yes, very much.
Right, okay.
It seems very hard to imagine that he survived that. But right. I guess Kat and Brienne did leave before the body was cold, so maybe they patched him back together. Maybe one of the maesters is really gifted. So let's say he was brought back to life or didn't die. I'm not quite sure how that's a good thing for the Lannisters. Unless he's agreed not to fight for the throne, and rather than side with his brother in the fight for the throne, has backed the Lannisters and the Tyrells.
You see, now you've explained it to me. They've dressed somebody up in his armour. To try and sow dissension in the ranks of Stannis' army. That's all it is.
That's very possible. They would have access to his armor, you would imagine.
Yeah.
They would just need someone who could fit it.
And then as a tactic, that does make good sense, because if he rides in and says, Renly, then some of Stannis' troops would be like, wait, I
thought he was dead. Wait, we're fighting for the wrong side.
Right.
Yeah, so.
That certainly sounds more plausible than him coming back to life. But hey.
It certainly does.
There are dragons.
Right. And others.
And the dragons made the wildfire more potent. Yeah. Who knows what the traveling necromancer might be able to get up to these days.
That's a good point. But Dontos mentions a whole bunch of houses that were involved in this battle here, and one of them he mentions are the Red Wines. And the Red Wines are in this fight now, unlike before, because they weren't able to fight on Renly's behalf, because the Lannisters had Horace and Hobber Red Wine hostage. So they had to stay out. But now that the Reach is on the side of the Lannisters, the Red Wines can actually take part in this battle here.
And as memory serves, poorly as we know, the Red Wines have specific reason to not want Stannis to take the throne. Because the Red Wines were complicit in the siege of Storm's End during Robert's rebellion, and ate heartily in front of him while he was eating his shoes.
True, the Red Wines and the Tyrells both did that, so they both would have reason not to want to expect retribution, or anticipate the possibility of it anyway.
Yep. So Dontos says that Stannis' men hardly fought for him, and that's presumably because they were conflicted when they saw Renly, in air quotes.
In air quotes. Right. And you gotta wonder, these are men that originally backed a man with no claim, so clearly they don't care a whole lot about who the true king is.
Yeah.
They seem possibly either just more excited about being part of Renly's group, or felt like, oh, that's the winning side now, I want to be on that side. So,
Yeah.
Could be one or the other.
I still give them a little bit of a pass that certainly Stannis wouldn't have given them, which is that they thought the Lannisters' claims were illegitimate, which they are, and they just wanted to step over Stannis because they just thought he would be a terrible king, whereas they thought Renly would be a good king.
Yeah.
Once Renly was out of the picture, they went to Stannis, I'm always kind of forgiving of that. Oh, unless I'm Stannis. Which is
yes,
still
right. So it's also mentioned that Renly kills Sir Gyard Morgan, and I was kind of surprised that he didn't go over to the Renly side, because he was a member of Renly's Rainbow Guard, so he was Gyard the Green. So I would have thought of all the people that were going to go over, might have been him.
But as a member of the Rainbow Guard, he would have known for a fact that Renly was dead. And so he maybe wasn't turned by the presence of this Renly character on the battlefield.
Oh, solid point. He would have been on the inside scoop of that.
Right. I mean, obviously, when people die, generally speaking, we take people's word for it.
Right. Yes.
So
go
examine the body ourselves.
Some random hedge knight who's fighting on behalf of Renly might see him and think, "Oh, it was all a rumor. He's really alive." But if you're someone who's on the the inside here, you would know. No, I saw him dead. He was real dead.
Right. Yeah. And Renly presumably was going, and this is for not looking after me.
Maybe, yeah.
So is there any chance that Stannis escapes all this? The majority of his relief force would be on the south side of the river, and that rather cuts off his retreat. If he has crossed the river, then there are the Gold Road, the King's Road, the Rosby Road out of King's Landing, but it feels like it's a little bit, there's a sort of like a hammer and anvil thing going on between the two sets of forces. So it's hard to know whether Stannis has any hope here.
Yeah, exactly. Dontos doesn't know. He says he's dead. He's fled. Who cares? No one knows. No one cares. So north, if he's on the north side of the river, that's bad. That's where the Lannisters are. If he's on the south side of the river, that's bad. That's where the Tyrells and Red Wines and Tarly. So, I'm sure Sam Tarly is very proud of his father's handiwork here in this battle. Yeah. So the only place he could possibly go is east. If he could, if he can get far enough east and catch Salladhor Sand's ships.
Go by boat. Yeah, that's possible, I suppose. And actually, in the TV show, that's a little bit more plausible because all of the fighting in the TV show, they came by rowboats from the remaining ships.
Right, so he could just sail away if
jump back
things
in the
went
rain
bad.
on the rowboats. Yeah.
And all this fighting was so exciting that even Ser Dontos wishes that he was a knight again. After just last time talking to Sansa, wanting to kiss Joffrey for making him a fool so he doesn't have to fight.
Yeah, but battles always seem good when you win them.
Right. Yeah.
When they're going on, you don't want any part of it. Anyway, do you have some background for us?
I did manage to muster up some background. So it looks like this might be the end of the Battle of the Blackwater. So let's look back at another battle that happened on the Blackwater back in the reign of King Maegor the Cruelly Misunderstood. This battle was called the Battle at the Great Fork of the Blackwater, and it took place a good bit upriver from King's Landing. But in fact, I'm not quite sure of the exact location. It happened, as the name of the battle would suggest, on the Great Fork of the Blackwater. And looking at a map, there's two places that fit that description. The first is up near the headwaters, south of the Stony Sept in the Riverlands. And the second is not too far west of King's Landing, where that unnamed river coming from the God's Eye meets with the Blackwater. Now, Wiki of Ice and Fire does have a Great Fork of the Blackwater page, but it's blank. So, Not getting much help there.
Let's make our own canon.
Yes. But since the battle was between Maegor's forces and those of the Faith Militant, I'm inclined to think that it was the fork near the Stony Sept. And another reason for that is that 200 warriors' sons from the Stony Sept participated in the battle. Now, of course, they could have traveled to that other fork. It wasn't that far away. So, anyway, it was one of those two locations would be my guess. But so the battle was between the Faith Militant and King Maegor's forces. And as a quick refresher, the uprising of the Faith Militant began when Maegor took a second wife while married to his first still, coupled with his brother King Aenys, who was King Aegon I's heir, marrying his son and daughter to each other. Both moves rankled many faithful to the Seven and their views on marriage. And the discord continued to escalate until King Aenys died due to the stress. And when King Maegor won the throne in his trial by combat in 42 AC, he awoke from his coma that he suffered in the trial, took to Balerion, and burned the Sept of Remembrance and all the Faith Militant inside. So, several battles ensued after that act of aggression, one of which took place at the Great Fork of the Blackwater. The Faith Militant's forces were made up of about 13,000 poor fellows, those 200 warriors' sons that I mentioned. And so the faith militant is basically made up of two groups. The poor fellows, or the stars, and the warriors' sons, or the swords. So the faith militant is called the swords and the stars, or stars and the swords, whichever. And also, there was about just under 7,000-ish men from the Riverlands and Westerlands on their side. Maegor had about as many men, and he actually had about twice the mounted knights, but he did also happen to have the largest dragon Westeros has ever seen. So, would it surprise you to learn that things went Maegor's way?
No.
Would it surprise you to hear that Balerion did some major damage?
Not really.
Even though it was raining?
Ooh.
Surprisingly, the rain did little to aid those poor fellows and the warriors' sons.
So I ask you, was that cruel, really? I mean, yes, obviously, on some levels it was, but comparison with the television show, I think I need to avoid a spoiler here about the Renly thing, so I'm going to tiptoe a little bit around that.
Okay.
Sansa does meet with the Hound in her room and refuses to go with him. There's no singing. When he reveals himself in her room that he's there, it reminds me of the scene at the end of Alien when Ripley thinks the aliens are all dead and she's sort of getting ready to go into sort of suspended animation, and then suddenly behind her the thing moves. Uh-huh. It's very much like that. He's in the background the whole time, and then suddenly he moves and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, she's not
alive.
Yeah,
it's a little bit scary.
Yeah. He departs. The battle does indeed hinge on the arrival of the combined forces of Tywin and Loras Tyrell, who's kind of like embodies the Tyrells for the sake of the TV show. Their arrival on the battle is juxtaposed against Cersei sitting with Tommen, who you remember in the TV show, Tommen's present as well.
Okay, right.
Fingering a bottle of poison. She's got a bottle of poison in her hand while telling Tommen a story of the lion being the greatest, being greater than the wolves and greater than the stags and all this kind of thing.
Okay.
And then, so again, juxtaposing the fighting with the new forces arriving, her in the throne room with the poison, Pod on the battlefield tending to Tyrion,
right,
and Stannis being dragged back by his men from the obviously losing, the lost cause.
Sure.
Cersei is just about to tip the poison down Tommen's neck when the doors of the throne room fly open and her father marches in to announce victory.
Okay. I recall this now. Yes, that's a good scene. That's a pretty cool scene.
Yeah. Pedantry. So I've mentioned it, but I think it's a bit inconsistent about Sansa's level of imprisonment here. I mean, she's got the run of, if she can go to her room, she can go anywhere.
Right.
And unless Ser Ilyn Payne is only charged with beheading her, he can't follow her, so...
Yeah,
it just
good point.
Feels like...
Yeah, there's I know she's not like Arya. She doesn't do a lot of exploration, but it feels like she could probably find a place to hide out until,
if
till
her
such
life
time.
Depends on it. Yeah.
Right.
News and notes.
News and notes. Okay, so Queen Cersei is taking on a new project. No, she's not pushing legislation for equal rights for women in Westeros. It's actually Lena Headey, the actor who played the Queen in A Game of Thrones, is directing her first feature film. We go with Lena Headey. Is that how you pronounce her name?
I like that. I'm good with that.
All right, me too. The psychological thriller that she'll be directing is called Violet, and it's based on a novel by Susie Holiday. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Susie Holiday?
Yeah. It's SJI are her initials. It's SJI Holiday, but her name is Susie.
Okay, Susie Holiday, okay. The premise of the story is two female travelers who decide to travel together only to discover neither is who they claim to be. And Headey is quoted as saying that the book stayed with her long after reading it. So hopefully the movie will do the same for us. And it sounds like a book worth considering as well.
Or the book could, yes. She's Susie Holiday. I looked her up after this. She's Scottish. I'm a big fan of all things Scottish. So.
Right. Good
So
stuff.
let's draw a line under this one.
Okay.
Is this really the end of the battle? It's ebbed and flowed.
It sure has.
You've
POV.
mentioned this before, yeah, every time we have a different POV, we get a different sort of take on how the battle is going.
Right. Yeah. So it looks from this POV like the battle is over. I guess we'll have to wait and see whether we get another Davos POV and they're winning again.
Given the next chapter is a Daenerys chapter, I think we can say
right.
This perhaps is the end.
But it was oddly perfect timing for reinforcements to arrive. Is that, like I was saying earlier, was that intentional? Were they waiting for Stannis to be in a precarious position, being committed on both sides of the river? Or is it just blind luck that all these forces showed up what feels like hours before Stannis' men took the city and castle?
See, the way that they attacked, the ideal situation would have been to attack on the city side, to try and draw more troops over, and then when the troops were depleting on the southern bank, to then attack on the southern bank too, so that you'd basically have split the forces as evenly as possible, so you'd only have to fight half the forces on both sides. See what I mean? If you ride into the battle on the city side, then the people on the other side are like, oh, we need to get over and help our buddies, so that they start to pour over, and then you attack them from the city side, so from the riverside. So then maybe there was that kind of level of coordination, just timing it just so.
Right. Yeah, which is odd because based on the way the description went, it seems like they might have done it the other way around, because Tyrion saw fighting on the southern bank. He didn't see any of his dad's forces at that time.
Maybe they just arrived and too many forces were going across and they wanted them to turn back,
Yeah.
So get in on the riverside. Of course, fundamentally, this all goes down to, why did you take so long to get here, Stannis? One day sooner.
Right. Literally one day sooner. Yes. And that goes back to, there's so many things we could go back to. Stannis just camped out in front of Storm's End for weeks on end.
That's the one. That's the key one for me. The whole Edric Storm thing. It's like, what is the point of this,
Right. Yeah.
You've back got your when men. You're king of the Seven Kingdoms and say, now will you open the door?
Yeah. I was going to say, remember they got into that storm on their way up the narrow sea from Storm's End. That cost them some time. But any of those. There's so many instances where they could have gotten enough time and they blew it.
Yeah. So the Hound was either just drunk and angry, or he was trying to express his deep feelings for Sansa. They come across awfully similar, those two things.
Yes, they do. Especially with the Hound. Yeah, it feels like he was asking her to come with him without actually doing so. My personal thought is he's just too fragile to handle the rejection of her actually saying no.
Oh, I'll mention, actually, there was one slight difference. I noticed it when I was watching this scene. When the Hound is talking to Sansa in her chambers, he actually says Winterfell. He doesn't say, I'm just going north. He actually offers her Winterfell. He says the word Winterfell. Wow. So that's a slight difference. And that, for me, is kind of like why, I'm sort of like, if I was Sansa, I'd be awfully tempted.
Right, because that's a big difference than north. Rosby is north,
Right.
Winterfell is a whole nother level of...
he's offering to take her home at that point.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, even though it's just a one-word difference between what he said, I thought, wow, that's... It must be interesting for George Martin, because, he wrote this book and he made conscious decisions. But by being involved in the TV show, he had the opportunity to make different decisions, sort of like, what would transpire if he adds the word Winterfell to that,
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of a cool way to think about it.
I also think the other thing, though, is that they need to bash you over the head, because the show, people aren't poring over the maps, like they are in the book. Yeah. So if he just says north, you might be like,
what does that mean?
Is it nice this time of year?
With winter coming?
Yeah.
I've been trying for a while, like all week, to sum up my thoughts on this Hound Sansa thing. And I think ultimately he seems like a man who's possibly in love with this young girl, who desperately his whole life has wanted to be loved back, but feels unworthy of love. He went to her to try and express his feelings, but he has no idea how to express love. So he messed it up terribly. Then he got angry at himself for messing it up terribly. And then he lashed out at her because he got angry at himself because he messed it up terribly.
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately what I think happened there.
But is this a missed opportunity for Sansa? You know, I mean, and is she already regretting it? Because again, I contend she made the decision in light of the fact that she thought Stannis was going to win. And if she could avoid Ilyn Payne, she might be okay.
Yeah.
But now that Joffrey has won, does she now regret? Because we're like, can I chase the Hound down, please?
Right. Yes, exactly. So, what happens to Sansa now? If the Tyrells are involved, which according to Dontos they are, then is the Joffrey, Baratheon, Marjorie, Tyrell betrothal been accepted? And if so, now what happens to Sansa? She becomes what? Just a captive, I guess.
Yes, what she always has been, a captive, yeah.
Right, yeah.
And Ser Dontos, please, God, be hiding your super deep, incredible plan beneath the layers and layers of really stupid, because so far you've got me convinced you're no help at all.
Yeah. Maybe he just has good intentions, but has absolutely no idea how to execute this plan. We better hope whoever his friend is knows what that person is doing. Oh, yes,
his friend, that's right.
Yes.
So, is Stannis still alive? What now for him? Is Renly alive? What now for him?
Right. Yeah. I guess we'll have to wait and find out. We won't find out next week, though, because we're off to Essos next week.
Okay. There's 3 ways that you could help us. You could go out and leave us a review. There's no better form of advertising. Secondly, you can buy some merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com, or you can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. And big thanks to those who've already become sustainers there.
Yes, thank you so very much. And as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter at ghostharrenhal, or on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, Discord.
Okay, and if you stick around until after we say goodbye, we'll sing the songs to you.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
So, thanks
for listening. After the music. So hang around till after the music. I'll put it after the music.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so this is how I sang it. All right, you ready?
Okay, yes.
Gentle mother, font of mercy, save our sons from war, we pray. Stay the swords and stay the arrows, let them know a better day.
Oh, that's complicated. There's a lot of
I'm making it up.
ups and
I'm
downs.
making it up as I go along.
This is how Roy Dutrice sang it. Gentle mother, font of mercy, save our sons from war, we pray. Stay the swords and stay the arrows, let them know a better day.
It fits. I'll give it that. All right. Ooh, we're sorry. We're sorry to you, Beethoven. Is that Beethoven? I don't even know if that's Beethoven.
That was Beethoven, yeah. This is Ode to Joy.
All right, that's enough. I'm stopping recording.
All right.